Welcome, welcome. We are live. My name is Marissa Blue Dawn. Welcome to Take Center Stage and Own It Magazine and Publishing. We are in the Author's Corner today with Jalante Manns. He is one of the best-selling authors of Grief His from Through His Eyes. So that's Grief Through His Eyes. Jalante, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here today. It looks like we got a little bit of a delay. I know that in the Dominican Republic, in my area, there's a lot of construction going on. And so technology happens, but we happen even more, right?
Yep. Well, good morning. Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And if there is a delay, like you said, sorry about that. And they are cutting grass outside of my house. So if you hear that, I apologize.
So listen, we know that life happens, and that's
Right.
why we're here today to talk about the book that you wrote and also the man behind the story. And so, Grief Through His Eyes, what an experience. Share a little bit about what this is a collaborative work, and the visionary anthologist is Deborah Fry. And what made you, interview with her last night? Her and her husband was so love them dearly because teamwork makes the dream work, and they're a true example of a couple coming together and supporting one another and getting the job done. How did she get you to write? We talk about men having challenges with writing and being transparent and coming forth with their stories. What was it that compelled you to open up and be transparent?
Okay. So with Deborah, I call her Mama Fry. She's like a mother to me. I went to college with her daughter, and ever since then, they've always, her and her husband, Mr. Fry, they've always been just so loving on everybody. Um, and and I actually explained it to him when she asked me to do it. I kind of tussled with it, but it made me think about all the memories that they would give me. And I explained to Mr. Fry, kind of like I started realizing a lot of my grief being around their family. And I said that because they were a mom and dad family household that I didn't have, and
Hmm.
loved on their kids and everyone else's kids. And I wanted that. They would just open up their house to 20 and 30 people during the summertime. We come up and sleep. Miss Fry would cook, and I would come home. Man, I want that. I want to be. I would see how they love on their daughter and their sons, and I'm like, wow, that's something that I never had. So through just seeing Mr. and Mrs. Fry relationship, I started realizing, or it was a part of my grief as well. Not, their fault or anything, but it was good that I realized that, man, I'm grown now and I'm still grieving this thing. But to do it, I just knew that she's so spirit led, and she's just so energized, and she pushed me because I'm like, I don't want to talk about this, and but it made me feel so good to get it out.
Yeah, right, right. And you said something. What they did was they modeled to you a different way.
Hmm.
So you had your family, and then you got a chance to see how another family interacts. The parents interacted with their children, and you saw that. And it's interesting because you're a dad, right? And we
Hmm.
just talked about just a few seconds ago. We were talking backstage about how in your bio it says you're about to be a dad of a little girl, but now you're saying that baby is here, right?
She is here. Yes, I
She
have a
is
beautiful
here.
baby girl. Yep, her name is
Oh,
Marissa, and she melts my heart. She is so beautiful. She is, I tell my wife, our last child because
oh,
we have two twin boys. They're
okay.
6,
Oh,
and my baby girl, she just she's 2 months now, actually. So we're excited about that. We have a lot of
oh,
new beginnings. I just bought a
yeah,
house, so
okay. Congratulations.
yeah. So between this summer was amazing. New baby, new cook, new house. Things just kept coming, but it's
You
been a
are doing
great.
what we call leveling up.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're leveling up. And that's a beautiful thing. And eight is new beginning. So you are in the eighth month of the year of this new beginning. So congratulations on the purchase of your new home. That's beautiful. That is such a foundation for your children. The memories that you'll create and make there. And I'm pretty sure that, the Fry family has been such an inspiration. It will be an
So,
influence on what you do with your children and how you have
mhm,
them in your household. Talk about, backtracking just to the book. You shared about, you didn't really want to do it. But when you did do it, it felt so much better. Talk about the therapeutic side of writing the book and actually, coming out with it and owning it.
mhm. So it was very therapeutic because a lot of times I didn't realize before I started, listening to the other men and the other authors' stories that um, I could I could call this grief of what I was going through. So because when I write about my dad, and how I lost him, it wasn't that I didn't lose him to death. So I speak about losing him to drugs and never being able to have a relationship with him since me being born. And I grieve that, to this day. But I didn't feel like I could call that grief, or I didn't feel like I could tell people, you know, um, what was going on because they wouldn't understand. So writing about it and having other people read it, and even though their situation wasn't the exact same from the mental health standpoint, but I found out there were a lot of people who were grieving not having a father who was living, and they didn't realize that they were grieving that as well. So it made me feel good to talk about because in writing, I spoke to my mom about it, and she started to understand feelings that I had that she never knew that I had. My grandmother, before it was published, I let her know what I wrote, and that was very therapeutic as well because I never talked about it even to my family, so they were able
Right.
to understand. Okay, wow, these are the stages that you were going through.
Right, right. And then understand also the impact it had on your decision making, trust
Mhm,
issues, trusting
mhm,
people. It's called, when grief is lost, and it's not just loss. We talked about that last night. It's just not loss of a death is not just a death to a physical death in the sense where
mhm,
someone passes away, but the death of something that you yearn for that you'll never be able to get. So
right,
I think this is so important to have these kind of conversations because we don't talk about that in our communities. And I remember being in a church service once, and we were in a youth event, and I was asked to come, like, kind of hold the floor, and I said, our children, we got to get rid of that proverb or whatever you want to call it that says be seen and not be heard, because
mhm,
there's so much pain that young people, kids, children go through when parents are not right, when situations are not right, when the parenting is off, the
right,
child is off, and the child is lost. And we look at it from the psychological perspective as lifespan development. It has a
mhm,
impact over a lifespan. And it could be adverse, it could be changed
right,
if the parent recognizes it and works with the child to rectify it. And
mhm,
so that's why I feel like these conversations are so critical, because now we're going into the next generation. Your children
right,
are here. Now what's going to
mhm,
happen?
yep,
How do we repair that? And a part of it is like what you said. It's therapeutic to talk about it. I like how Jesse Duplantis says it. He says, embarrass sin or it will embarrass you. So you want to shine light on the mishap and the misdeeds. Why? So that healing can take place and it can stop here, and you can
mhm,
have a whole family. Your children could not
right,
have experienced that, so that they can have a loving and nurturing environment. And
right,
so
and
just
nope,
share
I'm
your
sorry.
thoughts.
And that's why when you said that, it made me think about when you're talking about how important it is. It's very important to share it, especially for the younger generation, and to me, especially little younger boys without their fathers, because there's a stage in grief, the anger stage that I wrote about, where, and I notice it a lot. I used to work in the school system too, and just see it so much. When little boys grow up without their father, they go through a stage of anger. I wrote a piece in my chapter called "Mad at the World" because I went through a stage where I was literally just angry, and I wanted to blame everybody for my grief. I wanted to blame. I needed something to be mad at all the time because I it was that was my anger was kind of filling the gap of what I didn't have, the relationship that I didn't have with my father, and then I had to see, teammates or my sisters be embraced by their dads. Um, it's traumatic a lot of time for a younger boy. But I like that quote you said, and that's kind of a quote that kind of inspired me through the book was Muhammad Ali. When he had an interview, they asked him, what pushed you to be so great? And he said, well, my grief pushed me to greatness. And they didn't understand what he meant by that. But he says, you look at all of this prettiness and you think you think it was easy, but I don't like doing this. He said, I
Right.
hated every minute of training. I hated every minute of training. He said, but I told myself that if I train every day, I'll suffer now, but I'll live the rest of my life as a champion. And that's why my
Right.
chapter is called The Fatherless Champion, because you suffer through it, but if you keep going and get through it, you'll live the rest of your life as a champion. So, and that's the thing about grief that I love, because it doesn't matter how how long you grieve, how often you grieve, but how you overcome that grief. That's what shapes a person,
Right.
no matter
It's
what age.
right. It's all about your perspective and attitude, right? So I always say, are you going to look at the glass half full or half empty? So are you
Right.
going to look at it from a positive perspective of what can I take away from this negative and make it a
Mhm.
positive? And that's what I say, because at the end of the day, the only impact it's going to have is on you. Like, you can't control anything that's going on with anybody else's life. Like, you can't control your dad. Your dad's decisions are your dad's decisions, but what your dad did and how it impacted you is up to you. Now. What you did was what you did, but what I do with what you did is all up to me, right? And so I always look at, even with my parents, they were far from perfect. But
Mhm.
instead of looking at the imperfections, I took everything from them that I saw was positive and that was useful for me and good for gain with me, and applied it to my life. And so I read your bio. You are you're in criminal justice, so you look
Mhm.
at your background as criminal justice. Any in particular reason why you chose to go into that area?
So it was kind of like one of those things where I wasn't raised in the um, the best neighborhood. I wasn't. Um, so I put it this way: a lot of people, around, especially like law enforcement. I work in law enforcement now, but we would say, "Oh, we hate the police, or we hate this," or we had bad interactions. But my take on what was it? My take was I wanted to, when I grow up, I want to change something. I want to be a part of it so that I can make an impact and not just say I don't like it. So I started in the probation system because, again, I wanted to pull on these kids and the youth. Um, and then I switched over to policing and law enforcement.
Oh, that's awesome. Because just like you said, most inner city
Hmm.
youth, they're at battle or war
Right.
with the legal system. They don't trust it, which they have viable reason for not trusting it. All the things that they've gone
Definitely.
through, justifies that. But now law enforcement is doing its best to figure out ways to partner with the community, partner with school systems. I know a gentleman out in Prince George County, Maryland. Him and his
Hmm.
officers for the sheriff department, they go into schools and do youth leadership development programs, and just trying to foster trust and building a relationship with the young people and letting them know that they're there for them, not against them. So it's interesting. Then you also went into cybersecurity.
Hmm.
What made you
Yes,
go
I,
into cybersecurity? Listen, I'm checking out all your all your
yeah.
background.
So that there was a study a few years ago that it was very interesting to me, and it was talking about how the world is changing. As we know now, the sense of technology has just the growth of technology has grown so much. And a gentleman, I think it was a TED talk that I watched, he was talking about how, you know, 10 years from now, you won't have people to go inside a bank and try to rob a bank. That's not how people are going to get money. He said, well, not even 10 years, but he said 3 to 5. He said that bank, they can take that money now by hacking their computer system. So the biggest war that America and any country will ever fight from now on will be in cybersecurity. And that was
Wow.
probably in 2015 when I heard that. And I was like, well, let me, if I ever want to change careers, let me go ahead and try something different.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
just knowing how big technology is in the cyber world, I feel like it was always something that I could fall back on. But that's also my plans too in law enforcement. I don't plan on being just the I'm a trooper now, but we have different aspects we can go into. A special agent, we have the high tech crimes division where we do cyber encounters and cyber defense. So kind of both of my degrees and my career will go hand in hand. So I feel like it was a win-win.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And it's around 2015 that I really started hearing a lot more of cybersecurity with the
Mhm.
breaches and things like that. And so I also want to talk about your Omega Sci Fi fraternity member,
Mhm.
right?
Yes, ma'am.
So yeah, so share a little bit about being a part of a fraternity, being a part of a brotherhood. How does that help you in succeeding? Why is it important for you to go out, find an organization that will really support you? Talk about the importance of organizations such as fraternities and specifically the one that you're in.
Yeah, it's so important, especially with my fraternity, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. It the cliche thing people say is I wanted to be a part of something bigger than myself, which is but it's so true because sometimes we forget with everything that we're going that's going on. We kind of get self centered, and we don't focus on things and people who actually need help. But through the fraternity, we're kind of mandated. It's a lifetime commitment to being a community member, to giving back to your community, to giving back to the younger generation. So, and that's what I love about it because sometimes you get so busy, you focus on yourself, but then the fraternity has this going on. You're like, okay, well, I have to go do community service here, or reading books to kids, teaching kids how to tie ties. It keeps me grounded, so I don't get so self-centered. But I love it. I joined at Virginia State University in 2015, and I've been loving it ever since. So, but it's definitely important too because my I have a group of line brothers who we lift each other up through everything. When someone loses, when someone is going through grief, like now, I'm able to tell them about our book, and we're able to just piggyback off of each other for a lifetime. So it's so important to me, and I love it.
Yeah, yeah. It's so important to build relationships. So if young people are watching or anything like that, it's so important that when you get to a certain place in your life that you're successful or you're on your way, you're rising up to your success. It's so important to give back to the community to make a positive impact and to strengthen the community. It does take a village, and that's why it's so
Yeah.
important. And it
And I,
creates a net for you. So when you're going to do such things like a book project, and for those of you who are just chiming in, I am speaking with Jalante Manns, the #1 best-selling author, contributing author to Grief Through His Eyes. The visionary anthologist is Deborah Fry. And we're talking about his experience with writing the book, his insight and his perspective and his contribution to the body of work. But we're also going into who he is, and what he's all about. And it's so important for in our community, in the communities of color, to have to become transparent, because healing begins when we start having the hard, tough, uncomfortable conversations. Because when we do, it brings forth healing, and it also delivers other people. So, like I said last night, writing, it cuts both ways. It heals the author who is writing it. It's therapeutic to the author, the writer, and then it's also therapeutic in delivering to the reader, because the reader now can relate to the author, can connect to it, and realize that they're not alone, and they should not feel ashamed. They should not feel embarrassed. They should not feel uncomfortable, because it has happened before, and there is a way out. There's a story of there's trauma, but there is triumphant. And you shared a little bit about tech talk, TED Talks. Would you be interested in doing a TED Talk?
I would. I love those. I think they're very informative, especially they have, you know, sections of, whatever you want as far as technology or world events. So I would.
Yes, yes, I would too. That's one of my goals. We have a few comments from our audience that I want to chime in. And Brian Leonard, he's watching us and supporting us, and he has a shout out to us. Here we go. That's Brian.
Uh,
Then we got a couple more users. And then how can they purchase the book? Well, how can they purchase the book from you directly, Jalante?
so a couple ways. You can purchase the book. You can message me on Facebook Messenger, and I'll get your contact information. You could email me. My email is posted mansworldent@gmail.com. And you could even text or call me. I'll give my number out. Or if you message me on one of those platforms, we can
And
correspond
just,
that way. And
yeah,
I'm to the point now where if I had to ship it to you, I don't even charge shipping anymore because I just want people to after I sold my first batch of books and it went so quick and I'm like, wow, I had to order more. And I'm like, you know what? I really want people to have it once I start to hear what the book was doing for people and not just my chapter, but other men's chapter. I have friends who are, in their 20s relating to older men and different types of stories. And I'm like, this is amazing. People need this book. So
yeah.
any way you want to contact me, I'll get the book to you.
There are so many folks out here. My TT, Faye Morales, she for her grandson, she wants the book. So I'm going to connect with you so that we can get the book to her. It's so important because this is reconciliation. This is restoration, reconciliation. It's rejuvenation. There's so much rebirthing that comes out of things like that. Another viewer says it's so refreshing to hear our men share their vulnerability and talk about grief and how to overcome it. It is true, because really, to be honest, we talk about strength in the sense of being strong, invincible, but true
Mhm.
strength is being able to be vulnerable
Right.
unapologetically, not trying to fit in, not trying to worry about who cares about what they see. I like crying. I tell people I'm strong as all get up. I am a
Mhm.
strong woman, but I love crying because crying reminds me that I still have feelings,
Right.
that I have emotion, that I care. And it also lets other people know, go ahead and cry too. It's okay to cry. So we love it when we see our men showing up in all of who they're meant to be. And so, share with us, share with the audience any kind of insight or tips that you can give them. Like, let's say So, is this the first book you've written or participated in?
It is, and
Yes.
it was
So,
amazing,
talk
and
to our new authors. So, talk to our authors that are sitting on the bench worrying about what other people think if they reveal their story. Because there is a certain thing. Because remember, you said at first, it wasn't until you sold out your book you realized, like, I really want a lot of people to get this. There's some reservation because you're naked now. Everybody can see how you feel, what you are holding back or hiding or protecting, about your self image. Now it's out there. Talk to the new author or someone who's sitting on the fence trying to figure out if they should work on a project like this or not.
do it. Yeah, just go for it. So for me, I had a lot of reservations. You start to think about, and it's just like when anything you start, oh, what people will think, or what your family is going to say, or what you should and shouldn't do. My advice would be to just do it and do it for yourself, because it is true healing in writing, like you were talking about, that therapeutic piece. Not only the writing piece, because you say you like to cry, I hate to cry, but when I was writing it, I started, getting teary eyed. I talk about a part, because it reminded me of the struggle that I had as a teenager. And I spoke about, my mom being single when we, not having our dad, my dad. And it reminded me of, some of the instances that I didn't put in the book. But that moment, it took me back to that place. And then, I'm writing about it and writing about it. But when I read the book, it shows me that, hey, you overcame that. You grew through that. So now I feel, less sad about it, because I read it over and over. Or when I look at it, I'm like, well, that is something I accomplished. While writing it, I got those feelings out, but reading it, it made me feel so good. So don't be afraid to talk about your story or whatever you want to talk about in the opinion of others. Number one, I did it for myself, and I also did it for God. I feel like everything that I do is for God, and I know that He will be pleased with me being vulnerable.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. People are waiting for us to go through our test so that we
mhm,
can hear it, so they can hear our testimony. So it's just so important for us to realize, like, to whom much is given much is required. I can preach all day long about how God is looking for us to rise up, so that we can help others rise up, because it's not about us. Once we come to a place of victory, it's no longer about us. It's about us going back again, like we said, about community, going
right,
back and helping others to be strengthened up, for the battle that's ahead. Because this is one thing that we've experienced. We have a whole life ahead of us of different things that could happen, and that we can reflect on how we overcame here, and know how we're going to overcome in the future. Know that weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Right? This may be today, but it's not going to be forever. And
so,
so it's so very important. Any closing comments that you want to give to our audience? I know that you worked very hard last night and got in
mhm.
late, and I want you to be able to have, some time to rest and rejuvenate for real right now. So, do you have any comments that you want to share? I do want to talk about Man's World Enterprise. What is that? That is your company, and what's the company all about?
Yeah, so that's kind of like an umbrella. So, Men's World Enterprises, it composes of, at first, I started a podcast 2 years ago, called Men's World, the podcast, and I'm looking into starting it back up, where I interview couples, married, um, engaged, because I love love, and I think that is so important for people to love on each other. So it started as that, but now I've gone into entertainment where I DJ, all different age groups, all different genres. So, but it's kind of like an umbrella to going into. Me and my wife are planning on purchasing properties in the real estate business. So,
Okay, so you got different, building your empire, right?
trying, yeah, just trying to get started, because I've learned that just just working well for me and my family. Me and my wife, we both work hard. We have good jobs, but we want a lot more out of life, and it's going to take having some sort of business for yourself.
Right, right. And then also too, it makes it a fun and exciting. When you're not just doing one thing. So a lot of times in business, they try to tell you to find one thing that you do well and do that. But if
Mhm.
you are a creative individual, it's really difficult to kind of box you into just one thing. Because after a while, I know for me, that's going to get boring. So
Mhm.
I need to be able to do a little bit of this today and a little bit of that tomorrow and a little bit of that. And it's not you have attention deficit disorder. It's you are multifaceted. So if you're multifaceted, you have to do different things that you enjoy, that you really, really, really enjoy, and that speak to all parts of you. Just like you said, you love with great passion. I'm pretty sure you're probably romantic, so you love with great passion. You love all, so you want to spend a little time in that area. Then you also talk about the importance of you being creative and getting behind the turntable, DJing, however you guys do it
Mhm.
today, mixing things
Mhm.
up and getting the party started. So you love energy and dancing and having a good time. So there's a mixture of things,
Mhm.
that you love to do. Community outreach, you love doing that too. So that's awesome. So his business,
Mhm.
his company's name is Man's World. Is it entertainment or ENT?
Enterprises, yeah, ENT is for
Right.
enterprises. There's going to be a lot of umbrella businesses under that. But I did want to say, and I did want to leave people with is, and I read what Sean Warren was saying about fear is the enemy of faith. Don't let fear stop you. I'm growing to realize, we don't do a lot of things because we're fearful and we're scared. So, like I was talking about the podcast, I've been wanting to start it forever, but when the pandemic hit, I said it was a perfect opportunity. But again, we get scared of what people may think. What if it doesn't work out? But I started it. I can get back to it, or I can reboot it. But don't let fear overcome or overbear your dreams and your goals. If you don't complete it or if you don't finish it, that's okay, but just start. Like get started. If it's a book you want to write, if it's a business that you want to start, it may fail. It may not work how you want it to work. God may have other plans for you, but don't let fear stop you from pursuing your passion. And that's my goal now. I want to wake up every day and pursue my passion.
It is. It's so important to do that because that's when you're living a fulfilling life. When you don't operate in fear, but you're fearless. And you go and you decide, I'm going to do this thing, and just trust God. You trust God. I always like to say, when you're doing different things, you're going through a discovery process. And as
Right.
you master and discover, you go through an evolve process because you're always evolving. You're always getting better and improving. You're learning some things. You're getting some words of wisdom from yourself and your life experience. Jalante, it has been a huge pleasure. Don't be a stranger to the Own It platform. You got to come back and visit us over and over and over
Will do.
again. You're always welcome. We want to hear about you DJing. We want to have you, and if you would have your wife on Sweetheart Before I Say I Do, because I'm like you, 12 times self published author. I have Sweetheart Before I Do as one of my books, and I speak to the love relationship in a deep way, in a sense that we have to realize that it goes just beyond the two couples. It goes on to our family, our friends, and how we
Mhm.
impact them based on how we value our own relationship. So this is number one best-selling author, Jalante Manns. Grief Through His Eyes. It is a number one bestseller on Amazon and beyond. And we have been so blessed to have you. And like I said, we are looking forward to having you back. Folks, you can get a copy of his book, message him, request him on Facebook, get connected, follow him on Facebook, Instagram. If he's on Instagram, you got his name, you're gonna find him. Connect with him, message him on Facebook Messenger if you're interested in purchasing his book. You can also give him your email address. So if you're interested in purchasing the book, you can also email him at what's your email address?
It's Man's World ENT. MannsWorldEnt.
All right. Just reach out to him and connect with him, and follow him because he's telling you he's already doing some things. And you just want to stay in tune. You want to stay with him and follow him all the way through. We are so thankful for you guys. Have a blessed and the mess of enjoy the rest of your day. I will be back here at 2 o'clock for the Power of Prayer with Easter Frazier, prophetic intercessor. Super excited to have her. She is on the Throne Zone cover magazine, and we are looking forward to that now. So stay tuned, people. We'll be back. We're
Mhm.
out.